Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Oh, man, I've got great news to start out for a Monday. Some of y'all must have been praying real hard over the weekend, and it shows because in the reporting that I was leaving you with when we stepped out of here, you know, we had the new death toll. There was a press conference by your governor in the week last week, and the death toll to 135. And the real concerning part is there were still 170 plus missing. That number's come down to 3 in Kirk County. And I think it might just be 3 overall. I was digging through a couple of different reports, but they're all over the place. But the good news is the numbers finally have gone down. We hadn't had that yet. Here it is. Remember, this happened on July 4th. And what is it? The 21st? This is the first time we got a lower number. Thank you, Jesus. About time we got some good news on this one. Because the real concern wasn't just the 135 dead. It was the fact that there may be 135 more bodies that we still got to find. And so that's gone. So that's just like a big, just you can let a bunch of air out. I know you were tense and you were holding your breath. So the worst is definitely past us on that. And I think the people who are happy to hear about this news is the poor first responders. Because if they're, you saw the big mass of debris that was going through in all these viral videos. You've probably seen the pictures and videos of after everything settled and the flooding had stopped. There was like a car that just the side of it was sticking out of the mud. The rest of it was buried. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, if there's a bunch of human beings under there, we're going to have first responders digging out fellow human beings, possibly children, y'all, for God knows how long, for weeks. Well, if there's only 3 missing, then that obviously PTSD causing situation has been minimized. 3 missing, way better. So how do they knock all these people off the rolls? Some people are complaining that they're like, well, they were really wrong for a long time and had a lot of people worried. Shut up. We're not worried about that now. That's fine. I don't care how they mess it up. I'm just glad. I've never been more happy for a clerical error, if that's the case, if there even was an error. But there was 173 people missing when I left you on Friday. And they do things differently than they did when I started in talk radio than when you were a kid. Because they use cell phone data now. How many cell phones went dark? How many cell phones were active and they went dark and then they didn't come back on? So I think they're trying to use as many tools and information points as they can. And while we're, in the midst of it, in the immediate aftermath, if some things get a little disorganized and lost in the shuffle, they came back and they plugged in all the lights back in their light bright. And whatever the factor was, maybe it's because some cell phone service returned at the end of last week. Whatever it was, thank goodness that number is finally better. Because it's been breaking my heart to come in and tell you every day. It's just gotten a little bit worse. Tell you what else breaks your heart. My Miss Parker has a cousin that lives in Highland Park. Hi, Miss Parker. And yesterday I was over there and my kids were playing with her kids at the park across the street from her house. And there were green ribbons on a lot of the trees. And I was like, oh no, is that for the flooding? Yeah. So there were some green ribbons on some trees. And then when I was coming to her house and then when I was leaving her house, there was another little area where there was a bunch of pink ribbons. And then they kind of melded together where there were a handful of trees that had both green and pink. And I don't know, were the green for the boys and the pink for the girls or whatever it is, that kind of breaks your heart too when you got to see that. Because I don't know if you've ever lost like a child in your family. Like I have 4 children. I haven't lost any of them. But when I was growing up, I had 5 first cousins and we lost 2 of them before I graduated from high school. And the thing that really stings, it's not like something that's going to ruin your entire life. But, you get a lot of attention. At first, when it happens, James, sorry about your cousin. Oh, man, he was a good kid. And, it was like a couple weeks before he was graduating 8th grade. And so they left like an empty chair at 8th grade. But after that, no one circles back and says like 2 years later, hey, I'm sorry about your cousin, or that's so sad, or how you doing, buddy? But it still hurts. Just because it disappears from the news doesn't mean these families that are our neighbors are ever going to stop hurting. And time will kind of deaden the pain a little bit, but it will never go away. And even when the ribbons come down, they're never going to fully be made whole. So it's a heartbreaking situation. At least it stopped getting worse. And the fact that we're only missing 3 people in the official reports. Thank you to all the prayer warriors out there who I guess you got hurt over the weekend. Good job, y'all. Coming up next, you're going to hear from Christian Blood. He's been a friend of the show who lives in Kerrville. He's another talk radio guy, but he's been giving us updates on what it's like on the ground there. And we'll talk about some more fundraising efforts coming up that maybe you can participate in. That's next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. The flooding recovery continues, and the great news is we're down to 3 people missing, and the death toll stayed about the same. We just had a whole bunch of people knocked off the missing rolls, which is fantastic news. In the wake of all this tragedy, I mean, it's still a terrible situation, but at least it's not going to get much worse than it is now. My next guest, Christian Blood, has been a guy on the ground. He lives in Kerrville. He's a fellow talk radio guy on KTSA. Welcome back to the show. Tell us what it looks like from your point of view from a local on the flooding recovery, Christian. Well, yeah, well, fantastic that it's not going to get worse than it already is. We had some successful fundraisers, a nice big fundraising concert last week. Is there anything else that's coming up that you're aware of that maybe the people listening could participate in or donate to? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that the Miranda Lambert one? All right, we're talking with Christian Blood from KTSA. He's also a Kerrville resident. And if you're looking on ways to donate, if you go to WBAP.com, we have a page that is in our little headline rotator that has, almost a dozen different ways that you could donate. So it depends on what you're into. If you want to help the first responders, if you want to help with the Red Cross or the Salvation Army, if you want to help with the people who are dealing with the pets and the dogs and kitty cats, who are also victims of the storm, and you can go that angle. We've got you covered. Just go to WBAP.com. Now, you're a resident. Do things even look anywhere close to normal yet? What? That's just unfathomable. When they use big terms, they say that the storm stretched from basically San Angelo to well past y'all and dropped like 4 trillion gallons of rain. It's like you might as well say 11 trillion. I don't. These numbers are too big. No. All right, one more question for Christian Blood from KTSA. Are your utilities have they all been restored? I've done a lot of storm coverages throughout my days in talk radio, and sometimes the electricity can be out for 2 weeks or even a month for some people, and that's pretty devastating. Well, did your utilities recover yet? All right. Well, thank you very much, Christian Blood. I appreciate your time again for stopping in on WBAP. Thank you very much. This is Brent, Lake Weatherford. You're on WBAP.
Yeah, I'm just driving back from there, and you've seen the pictures on TV and everything, but when you're there and you really see it, you can't even imagine it. It's unbelievable going through Kerrville and the power of the river. And I talked with a lot of had Weatherford Fire Department was down there, and they were relieving a lot of people. And they said the same thing. What happened is everybody finally got everything together. All the different agencies got together, and then all the people, they finally compiled this list. My question would be, had to be some people down there off the grid, hanging out down there and everything. So that's the only thing I've got. There's always somebody that's, at other places instead of all the RV camps and all that. But all I can tell everybody here, I've never seen anything like it. It was so overpowering.
Well, a lot of people are saying that, but Brent, you're probably not going to see anything else like this. This seems to be a once in a lifetime level event, because even when you go back and you trace, like, well, has there ever been flooding in this valley before? Yeah, several times, like 17 feet or like 9 feet or one time 20 feet, not 20 or 26 feet in 45 minutes. It's hopefully a once in a lifetime thing. But thanks for sharing your eyewitness account, Brent. Appreciate you calling in.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Whew. All right. Coming up next, the Texas legislature's special session started today. I'm skeptical. I'm cynical. You're going to hear a lot of sarcasm out of me. But if things go good, this could help your tax bill. We'll talk about that next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. The Texas legislature starts its special session today. Or I guess I should say started. I think they gavelled in at noon right before the James Show started. And the rules in the Texas Constitution say that they can only pass bills or even consider bills that are on the governor's call for the special session. You know, he has to make like a proclamation. Here's what we're going to talk about. And it looks like the first thing on the agenda, property taxes. Well, that's good because we didn't really do much about property taxes in the real session. And look, let's get a lot of the perfunctory stuff out of the way, a lot of the formalities. I love the fact that our state legislature is only supposed to meet every 2 years for 5 months. I wish we would stick to that and not have to do special sessions every time. You probably remember in 2023 that we had, 5 different special sessions? So the fact that we keep doing these special sessions and they're expected to happen means they're not really special at all. It's just built in, and we found sort of a workaround to one of the great limiting factors in the Texas Constitution, limiting it to a little 5-month span every 2 years. So first, all right, I don't like the idea of special sessions unless there really is an emergency. This time there really is an emergency. We just had them run out the clock on all our priorities, and they didn't even try to address them. They gave you something called property taxes, but it didn't cut your property taxes. They passed something called school choice, but it didn't give your kids school choice. And so the fraud is just going to continue for a few more special sessions. And if I sound cynical or even skeptical, it's based on 20 years of having to relay this terrible information to you. Now, one of the great heroes of the James Show is a state representative from the Midlothian area named Brian Harrison. He's all over this. Brian Harrison is like a little mini-me, or I guess I'm a mini-him. He's probably bigger than me. Not physically, but he says he's filing 10 bills related to property tax cuts. Oh, yeah. Now, I'm really only interested in one of his bills, to be honest, and that's the one that would abolish ad valorem taxes altogether. And a round of applause for that. Yes. This is a debate that's fun to have because people aren't inherently principled when it comes to so many of these conversations. People say, yeah, capitalism is better than socialism. We got to get rid of all the socialism in our government. Well, okay, so you want to abolish Social Security? Hold up, Parker, hang on, I depend on that. So yeah. My observation of people sticking to their principles has been pretty squishy when it comes to some of these topics. So there's a whole lot of people who will say, yeah, we need to get rid of property taxes. Okay, well, do you want to get rid of all the programs it funds? Well, no, hang on, Parker. Well, why stop? Why not just live on your principles? You and I agree when there's something wrong that for people who have paid off their home 20 years ago, especially if you're like 75 years old now and you're retired and you don't have money coming in, and now you have to keep paying taxes on this home that's been paid off for 20 years after you spent 30 years paying it off, a home you've lived in for 50 years. You can get kicked out of it at any time if you get behind on your taxes. And for like I even copied and pasted this one because when Governor Abbott had tweeted this, I think earlier today, a lady named Beth replied to it. I paid off my home 20 years ago. I'm 70 now. I have now paid more than twice in taxes than what I paid for my home. Abolish property taxes, especially for seniors. Now, that's something most people can get down with. There's something wrong with that. You have paid more than twice in taxes what you've paid for your home? That's interesting. So I'll go ahead and give you my gray area. James, you can't just be an extremist and say no taxes at any time whatsoever, period, point blank, in the story. How about this? How about we pay taxes when we buy the property and then never again? It's like a sales tax. Like when I got this Dr. Pepper here in my left hand, it was like $2.85 and then whatever, 18 cents or something like that, 20 cents in taxes. Do they come back next year? And if I haven't drank all this Dr. Pepper, I got to pay 20 cents again? No, they don't do that for other forms of property. They don't do that for your car, unless you count the licensing, which is kind of a good point. But yeah, there's something inherently wrong with that, and I think we can all agree. So now we've got a little bit of gray area to work with. How far can I push you to wanting to get rid of property taxes? And then we have a guy right under that named Pa Bear on Twitter. He said, has Brian Harrison offered a replacement source of funding for all the items property taxes fund? No, then he's not a serious person. I disagree, sir. I absolutely disagree. Who says we have to replace the funding source? You know what I mean? We want to cut taxes. That doesn't mean we want to cut this tax and we'll raise some other tax somewhere else and take the same amount of money from you. No, the point is you're going to take less money from us. And so you nerds in Austin are going to have to figure out how to live on whatever money comes in. And if you're going to have to cut some programs, then boo-hoo, just cry yourself to sleep on your big fat pillow, okay? No property taxes. Cut all the goofy things that it's funding. I probably don't like them either. James, who's going to pay for public schools? Nobody, I hope. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Did I lose you there, or are you still with me? Coming up next on The James Show, you're going to hear from a crime prevention expert on why Fort Worth crime, especially in their downtown area, is extremely lower than Dallas. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. You're listening to News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. You know, this stat came out last week, and we talked about it a little bit. And I wanted to bring a crime prevention expert to sort of deep dive into this. And the crime rates in downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth look like they're from different planets. And on a good month, like last month in June, in downtown Dallas, the crime rate was 5 times higher than downtown Fort Worth. Even if you adjust for downtown Dallas being slightly more dense, it's not even that much more dense than Fort Worth. The numbers are still over one. In some months, I believe it was like March, it was 11 times higher in Dallas versus Fort Worth. Why is that? What can we do about it? What lessons can we learn from that? Dr. Alex Carmen's coming back on the James Show, and we need to pick your brain about that. I know you're a local here. What's your theories on, number one, why are these numbers so different, Dr. Alex? So if we handed you the keys to the kingdom, said Dr. Alex Dale Carmen, how do we have Dallas do better, do more like Fort Worth? Where would you start? Well, Dr. Alex Carmen, what do you say to people who think that a lot of this lays at the feet of some of the judges and prosecutors who are go easy on criminals? Right. All right. Well, we're talking about the difference in crime rates between downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth. And look, when you pit Dallas against Fort Worth, it looks bad. But if you pit it against other big cities of similar size, like in Atlanta or Chicago, wouldn't you say Dallas is actually outperforming other towns its size? Interesting. I always feel like there's sort of an information hole when trying to answer some of these questions because I would like to see like what percentage of crime is committed by people who come from a broken home or what percentage of criminals were at church the previous Sunday. And I know, these are things that aren't on most forms and are kind of hard to nail down. But I would be really interested to find out some of that information. Could you point me in the right direction? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. This is Dr. Alex Del Carmen, a crime prevention expert. Appreciate your expertise on the James Show, sir. Well, that's fun stuff. Coming up next on the James Show, I know you missed the WNBA All-Star game this weekend. I didn't expect you to see it, but did you see that when they came out of the tunnel for warm-ups, the girls were wearing a shirt, "Pay us what you owe us." Okay, you're going to hear the whole cold, hard truth and the economics behind that coming up next on the James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. And whether you agree with me all the time or not, I know you don't always agree with me. You got to admit that I say things on this show that you're not hearing on other shows. Have you ever heard another talk show host say, hey, maybe when we're getting all these crime statistics, we should collect other pieces of the data, not just like their weight and their height and their race and their gender or whatever the heck, or their zip code. How about we ask some actual cultural questions? Were you raised in a two-parent household? Were you raised by a biological mom or dad? Were you born out of wedlock? Did you have a step-parent in the house? Did you go to church on Sunday? Wouldn't it be great to have some of that information? Because a lot of people, myself included, think that the real underpinning, not the symptom, but the disease behind the epidemic of crime is a cultural issue, not even an economic issue. So if we had the answers to some of these questions, wouldn't that be great? Because we could say, hey, it looks like X amount of crime is committed by people who were just in church the previous Sunday. Maybe one of the solutions is we could encourage people to go to church, or we could encourage people to have kids in wedlock or be raised by their biological parents. Maybe we could discourage divorce. Maybe we should just be a little more picky about who we procreate with. 800-288-9227. A little sensitive subjects there, huh? John in Dallas, you're on WBAP.
Okay, yes, James. I just have 3 comments or 3 suggestions that I believe would help the situation in downtown Dallas.
Well, I'd love to hear it, John. Go.
Okay, great. Well, one of them would be the bars, the nightclubs, and all that need to have a 12 o'clock license instead of a 2 o'clock license.
Already disagree, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, curfew for the 16 and under, the minors. They need to have a curfew. They don't need to be running the streets at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock. 10 o'clock, they got to go. Homeless people, if you can't prove you're a resident, you can't prove you live downtown, you got to go in the shelter. 10 o'clock. I mean,
I'm guessing you're not a libertarian, because everything you just proposed is more restrictions for the people and more power for government.
Well, it has to do with keeping the streets safe and people, being encouraged to move in that area, in the downtown area, and they're not right now. So that's a lot of the problems. I'm just saying I don't have all the answers, but that just seems like, we don't have enough of maybe enforcement in sensible.
I feel you, but here's where I would start on my pushback against you, John, because you sound like a reasonable guy. Because my problem or my solutions are trying to deal with the root causes here. And I know you're just trying to deal with the situation we've got. Now, if you just restrict the bars to 12 o'clock, you're not getting rid of any criminals. You're just moving them somewhere else. In fact, you're making their little window of operation move, and that's about it. So I'm not sure.
We were just talking about the downtown area. And if we can move them away from there.
Agreed. So if you think crime follows the closing time of bars, then wouldn't you just relocate crime to adjacent neighborhoods or maybe even further out into the suburbs?
Well, that's probably true, but we weren't talking about that. We were talking about downtown Dallas, And also, let me just say this.
Sure.
Closing bars at 12 o'clock instead of 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes they linger on until 4 and 5. That 75 highway headed north to Sherman is very dangerous. And I think you could eliminate a lot of that problem. And a lot of people agree with me on that.
Yeah, see,
as far as the minors and the youngsters,
I don't, but let me explain why. Because if you have a closing time, then all the drunk people get on the street at the same time and they hit 75 to go north. Also, I have lived in New Orleans where there wasn't a closing time. You can sell beer in New Orleans, or you can have a bar open and sell alcohol 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if you get the right license. Yeah. And a lot of places do. So that kind of spreads it out. So sometimes.
Yeah. And we're all just too liberal, I think, because a lot of people in the area of Deep Ellum and that whole downtown area, not so much West End because that's a dying deal there.
Dead,
but,
yes.
In the other areas, even in West Village. Your bartenders, nobody cares. Everybody's over-serving everybody.
Agreed.
They don't care. Everybody wants the quick money. They don't care if you get drunk and get out on the road and kill somebody.
Agreed.
And, people have that lackadaisical attitude, and it's just the way it is. But anyway, James, I'll let you go. I appreciate it.
No, it's a fun chat. I appreciate it because, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that. But I've also, I've also had the ugly knowledge that a lot of other Dallasites have, that when the bars close, there are places you can go and keep the party going, and they will still serve alcohol, but it's illegal. Oh my goodness. There's James, are you mean to tell me that there are people who would still drink alcohol after closing time? You mean they don't all just follow the law like good little soldiers and quit? Yeah, you've just created a whole underground market. There's a string of speakeasies, and I'm not going to tell you where some of them are at, but you could find them on your phone in about 30 seconds if you really put in the effort. So just driving it underground makes it even more seedy and less accountable and bigger problems. But I'm still looking at getting rid of the criminals. Like, how do we stop creating so damn many criminals? In fact, why do some societies create more criminals than others? 800-288-9227. Coming up next, let's address this WNBA t-shirt. You need to pay us what you owe us, because by my math, if you were getting paid what you owed as a WNBA player, you'd be getting a negative check. You would have to pay dues in order to participate in the league. So is that what they mean? We'll talk about that next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. I am your host, James Parker. You're listening to News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I know you caught the WNBA All-Star game because you're such a huge fan, right? All right, let's get that out of the way because we have a real economic discussion here. It's come up again, the idea of their pay being a little behind what they think it is. And that's not conjecture. They came out of the tunnel, and when it was time for WNBA All-Star Game warm-ups, they're wearing a shirt that says, "Pay us what you owe us." Oh, great. I am so glad y'all brought this up. Pay us what you owe us. Okay, so what are you owed as a player in a league that lost $40 million last year? What is your fair share of a $40 million loss? If you were getting paid your fair share, we would just divvy that up between the 100 or so players that you got, and y'all would all owe the league what, $40,000? That's your negative $40,000. A $40,000 bill is what you are owed. But no, that's a little too harsh because that's not in reality. It's not just, the net profits of the business divided by the employees. But when you want to talk about like just ethereal concepts and what is just and what is fair, that could be a good argument. But economically speaking, that doesn't satiate my economic leanings. Because the real worth of what they do is whatever money, whatever revenue they can draw from the free market without coercion. And so they do actually have a couple of other avenues. Having a WNBA is not something that the NBA does out of altruism. The NBA is who covers that $40 million cost. So what you have is this one league, incredibly successful, generates a ton of money, even more so than they pay their players, operate at a profit. And so for a side project, they have started this WNBA league, and they think, well, $40 million, that's worth it to have a WNBA league. So why does the NBA do this? What do they get out of this? 100% PR, baby. 100. That's what they are. Luckily, the NBA needs PR so badly, they're willing to float your league for $40 million. And look, you don't have to be a basketball fan to have heard some of the stories. Some of these guys are not the best fathers and husbands in town. Some of these guys are pretty abusive to women. Some of them are domestic violence. Some of them say terrible things. Some of them just run around treating women like donors and receptacles for their future children. Their army of bastards. A lot of ugly stuff happens, and it's not necessarily even the NBA's fault. But it doesn't matter how much trouble they run afoul with the traditional mores of feminism and people demanding respect to women. They have this whole WNBA that has the strongest women voices, some of the best known, that will never throw their daggers at the NBA because their livelihood depends on it. But on a more positive note, they are generating a lot of revenue that I think that they earn. When Caitlin Clark signs an 8-year deal with Nike last year for $28 million. Nike might lose a little bit of money on that deal, but for them, it's worth the PR. Now Nike can get away with it. Is Caitlin Clark going to have any complaints about Nike sweatshops in Indonesia or their terrible working conditions or their child slave labor in the jungles of Malaysia to put together some black Air Force Ones? Less likely, isn't it? So they're paying for something, but what they're paying for is political fealty, in my view. Caitlin Clark's salary is $78,000 a year. I've looked at the paperwork on who watches or who listens to this show. You make more than she does in her salary. But she has a $28 million contract with Nike over 8 years. She has a multi-million-dollar deal with Gatorade. She has a multi-million-dollar deal with State Farm where she pops up at commercials and whatnot. So when you say, all right, well, what's fair? Fair is when you take all the revenue that the WNBA generates and you divvy it up among the players, well, then we should all be getting more money. Well, if you add in Caitlin Clark's money and you add in Paige Beckers and Angel Reese, and that's all of the players that I know, actually. Isn't there another one? I don't know. For some reason, my dad has started watching the WNBA and he sends me video highlights and stuff. It's like, Dad, these girls can't even dunk. But if you wanted to take in all the money that these girls bring in endorsements from corporate sponsors, evil corporations, evil capitalist pigs who just exploit people. No, they're not so bad. Actually, the WNBA wouldn't be considered a money loser. Then you could actually make the case that you cover your own salary. But you know what you have to do? Caitlin Clark would have to share all that Nike money with everybody else. She would have to share all that State Farm money with everyone else. She'd have to share all that Gatorade money with everyone else. There was Angel Reese. She was on what was it, Christian Dior or Prada or I don't know. There was a billboard out here on the American Airlines Center that she was in for some luxury clothing brand. Does she really believe in equity, equality, and fairness so much that she's taking those big millions of dollars that she's making through her endorsements and sharing it with the other players? Oh, no? Oh, that's weird because that's what fair would be. That's, you do have some players out there who are making $42,000 a year, and they're driving around in a car even older than mine. Just for bragging rights here, don't get jealous. I have a 10-year-old Toyota with body damage, so, ladies, calm down. Ha, ha, ha. I get it. It's a joke. I'm not real financially successful either. But the point is there's a nice duality that's going on that's real obvious here. Pay us what you owe us. We generate all this money and we don't get to see it all, and we don't all get an equal share of it. Well, the last person wearing those shirts should be any of these ladies to get $1 million deals. Because not only are you not being underpaid, you are in what is a gift, a league of benevolence only. You are not playing basketball professionally based on the merits of your own ability. You're playing basketball based on the merits of the politics that comes with supporting a women's league. And the people that are buying off the criticism of their otherwise bad behavior by supporting your players in your league. So now Nike can go along, and they've bought off some of the loudest critics, some of the most political critics as well. And with their sweatshops, with their child labor practices, with everything negative that they do, it's totally worth it to throw a few bucks at these girls. And so they won't talk bad about Nike. But that's the league you're in. That's the business you're in. It's not basketball. And look, I don't buy the idea either that, women don't deserve as much as the men, because if they lined up against the men would crush them. Yes, they would. Absolutely. Same argument that I love for the two soccer teams. The national women's soccer team says, we should be paid as much as the men. Well, really? Line up on the field against them. Let me see how that works out for you. But there are arenas in women's sports where women do make more money than men, or the gap isn't nearly as wide. Think like women's tennis, women's volleyball, women's gymnastics. But why? Well, because you, the consumers out there, actually watch it in similar proportion to the men. Not so with the WNBA. Here's Caitlin Clark talking about her pay sponsors.
Where does your W salary stack up against your deals with State Farm, Gatorade, Nike?
It's a good question.
It's a great question.
Honestly, I feel like that's where we're really fortunate, is that we have those other deals. And I think that's one of the things that we're in the room fighting for, like Fee said, is, we should be paid more. And hopefully that's the case moving forward as the league continues to grow. I think that's something that's probably the most important thing that we're in the room advocating about.
Yeah, that's what someone in the top 1% would say. Isn't it the same group of people that talk about how it's not fair, how there's just a handful of billionaires that have more money than the bottom 50% of the entire population? Well, I believe the top 10% of the players in the WNBA definitely make more money than the bottom 50%. Where's your wealth redistribution here? Well, you have a microcosm of an economy here. Why aren't you saying that? Why don't we take money away from you who earn more and redistribute that, share the wealth with the people who earn less until everybody's equal? Because that's what you ask the rest of the world to do, but not your world. Interesting. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Do you think the WNBA players deserve more money? Your call's next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. And if your home hasn't had a new roof in the last 10 years at the most, you may want to go ahead and get one of these free inspections. For the number one reason, it's free. There's no downside to it. But on a long enough time scale, your roof is going to fail. Your roof is going to need to be repaired. Roofs do not last forever. Those bricks in the walls, that'll last for 100 years. That concrete slab, I know things are a little shifty around here, but that might last for 100 years. Your roof is not going to last for 100 years. But also, it's nice to get some excellent service around here. It's nice to support a family-run business that's been in North Texas for 31 years. It's nice to go online and read the 5-star reviews about how people are impressed because the last contractor that did work on their house left a big mess. They left nails in the yard. They left trash in the driveway. They left footprints in the hallway. That's not what Blue Ribbon Roofing does. Go to blueribbondfw.com. Read some of these reviews for yourself. If you got a weird roof, you got a steep roof, you live out in a remote middle of nowhere. Dude, I live in Buck Tussle. They came out to inspect my roof, and it's further than you live away. So go ahead and check it out. If you do need a new roof, they'll help you with the ugly insurance process. They'll get you a big, beautiful roof with the perfect tile, with the perfect shingles, with great craftsmanship, with crews that have been with them for years. And then you can be over here, and I'll read your next 5-star review. So go to blueribbondfw.com to schedule your free inspection today. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome. This is the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. And then when the WNBA players come out wearing T-shirts saying, pay us what you owe us, I checked the ledger. Your league lost $40 million last year. So I guess the real number should be somewhere around zero. I'm guessing that's not what they're asking for. They're always asking for more money. You ever meet people that say, yeah, I should be making less money? They're hard to come by. I'm sure they exist. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Is this Steve, the big, bad, black conservative on the James Show?
You know it is.
Yeah.
In full effect.
Well, hadn't heard from you in a while. How's it going? Your thoughts on the WNBA players saying they deserve more money?
Well, work's been doing a lot more talking to customers and being able to talk on the radio. So, unfortunately, I haven't been able to call into the show.
That's a good problem.
Yeah, it's a very good problem to have. But I've got 3 points, and I'm hoping I can get through at least 2 of them.
Sure.
But the first thing I've got is, who printed the shirts? I mean, they've got to know that the league is in the red. So you've got players.
Did they charge it to the league? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got owners. You got whoever the ball boys and girls are. Nobody said, wait a minute, guys. Wait. We owe the league $40 million before we're even. Who thought it was a good idea to print these daggum shirts and wear them outside? I think it goes back to the idea that women live life on easy mode. That's going to piss off a lot of your listeners, and I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Say that again and just say it slow so everyone hears it.
I think that it really just digs back into the understanding that women really do honestly live life on easy mode. They don't even have to consider the math. The fact that they're $40 million in debt makes no difference at all. They think that they should get double, triple, quadruple the salary, and nobody should ask any questions. And even without the Caitlins and the Angel, what's her face,
Angel Reese,
and the other girl, I didn't even know who she was. So I was shocked to even hear. I said, who? The who? Paige, somebody or another? I'd never even heard of her. It tells you how unimportant these people are in the grand scheme of things. I don't see how they can come to that conclusion sensibly. Now, the second point, let me go back to it. There it is. The fact that your pops is watching the WNBA is exactly what the WNBA wants. So their audience grew by 1, at least. So that means maybe next year they won't be $40 million in debt, maybe $39.99 million. So it won't be it's such a loss. They'll be okay. If they keep that track, they'll be in the black. I don't know, maybe 50 years from now.
Well, okay. So here's my theory on my dad. I don't think he actually watches the game. I think he just watches so much news and so much social media that he kind of gets the feeling like the WNBA is far more popular than it is. And so when he sees like some of the bickering or the stories that they try and make going back and forth, like, oh, look at this flagrant foul, or look, they got in a fight, or someone tried to throw a punch or whatever. And he's like, people are really watching this. I'm like, no, I don't think they are, Dad. But did you have another point to get to? Because I love that.
Yeah. Last one, and I'll leave you alone. But when you started the story, I think I heard you say All-Star Game. Did you say All-Star Game?
Yeah, their All-Star Game was this weekend, and this was for the warm-ups of the All-Star Game when they came out in the shirts, pay us what you owe us.
Yeah. Well, obviously I didn't watch it either, but yeah, I guess the first question is, what do you have to do to be an All-Star in the WNBA? I mean, they all score like 6 points. Anyway, I mean, what do you have to do? And how many players were All-Stars? I mean, like you said, you named 3, and I didn't know but 2 of them. So who are the rest of these people calling themselves stars to deserve to be on an All-Star team?
Look, no matter how bad a league is, there's going to be 10 people who are less bad than everyone else, or they're going to be the best of the league. So the point isn't even here to dunk on them, pun sort of intended here, because, I hope they have a nice league. I wish it did turn a profit. I don't wish them harm. I like the idea that if my girls were in the basketball, they would have someone to look up to that's also a woman.
Right.
But here's something that, just to admit my own ignorance here, it was only about a month ago before I even watched half of a WNBA game. I'd seen highlights and whatever reels people put together. And I was at a Chinese buffet, and I happened to be sitting at the table facing a TV, and it was right behind my kids. And so I actually was watching it, and I watched maybe 30 minutes of it. Steve, it was terrible. It was bad. Like it was.
It did nothing for you.
Well, it not only did it not do anything for me, I was thinking, all right, my high school team of Bug Tussle would destroy these ladies. But again, not just that either. Like I think and this might sound like a stretch. I promise I'm not being hyperbolic just for comedy's sake. I think the JV team at Bug Tussle would blow these girls out of the gym too. And again, I don't delight in saying that, but like none of them can dunk. There's a bunch of bounce passes and layups. It looked kind of like, I don't know, like the Washington Generals would beat the snot out of them. But yeah. That was kind of my takeaway. And again, I don't wish them any harm. I wish it did make money. It wouldn't have to be this big economic discussion, and I would like to come in here and say maybe they do deserve more money. Look, it's not the world's greatest basketball, but they got eyeballs, they got fans, they're selling jerseys, they're selling tickets, they're getting ratings. But here, it's just a big welfare program.
But and then, like I said, the biggest thing to me, and that's why I started with that point: who printed the shirts? Who didn't know that they were $40 million a day?
I think they all know. I think
they know immediately.
All right, we're going to leave you with the great Dave Chappelle.
Say LeBron James changed his gender. You know what I mean? Okay, can he stay in the NBA, or because he's a woman, does he have to go to the WNBA? Where he will score 840 points a game. What does it actually mean to be equal? You know what I mean? Like, if women are actually equal to men, then there would be no WNBA, would there? You would just be good enough to play in the NBA with us. Or, here's another idea that's going to be very controversial. You could shut the up.
All right, that's the Philosopher King, Dave Chappelle. Coming up next on The James Show. After seeing those cheaters busted at the Coldplay concert, I know you've seen that on your social media feed. Would you believe that 1 out of 3 employees admit that they've hooked up with their manager at some point in their career? Doesn't that sound a little high? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Welcome to the big show. My next guest, returning to the show, Javier Perez. He's a legal expert, and I needed to talk to a legal expert here because something doesn't sound right. We all saw the funny video of the couple on the kiss cam at the Coldplay concert. Apparently, they weren't supposed to be together. It's the CEO of Astronomer and his head of HR, and they were both married, and they both acted ashamed that this was possibly happening. And then someone threw up a link here that said a third of U.S. employees have had a workplace romance with their manager. Not, it doesn't mean like right now, today, but it means it's sometime in their career. I haven't. Am I just ugly, Javier? I didn't know it was this common. Well, thank you for confirming that I'm not ugly, but isn't this a really horrible idea? You mean 1 out of 3 people do this? Okay. Well, look, 80% of American workers said they had a workplace romance, period, point blank, even in the story. And look, I did that. Like, it doesn't count when I was like waiting tables at restaurants in college and whatnot. But I did at the first radio station I worked with, I was just the lowest of the low producer underling, and I dated a girl in the promotions department. And when that happened, I had my boss pull me aside. He's like, look, she's a nice girl, and it's probably not going to cause you any problems, but you should never, ever, ever do this again. Like that is the dumbest thing you could possibly do, because in the off chance that when it does inevitably end, unless you're going to marry her, that if she wants to destroy you over that or hurt you in some way, she can end your job, if not your career. So I was cautious, and this is when I was 25, and so I haven't really touched it since. Well, and I think it's a bigger problem for the men over the women. For what I've observed, there are a lot of people that I've worked with who did not follow that rule, and it's never ended with a guy getting a payout. It has ended several times with a woman getting a payout. So I think this is just doubly dumb if you're a man. So what happens if you're rolled up in one of these relationships that goes sour? How do you protect yourself? Oh my goodness, right? Interesting stuff. Javier Perez, thanks for coming on the James Show. How do they find your work outside of WBAP, sir? Thank you very much. And look, Garrett, I know you don't have the women crawling all over you, but you need to follow this rule too, okay? He's a handsome fella over there. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I can't believe the story keeps coming up. It's like, wow, man, you just can't flush your career down the toilet fast enough, can you? Next, though, another ICE agent has been shot by an illegal immigrant. Find out how many times this guy had been arrested. Next, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, welcome back, fellow Texans. It's the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Yeah, let's go. Hey, coming up in a half hour from right now, I'm going to be giving away a pair of tickets to see the Texas Rangers. They got a game this Saturday. And I know sometimes when I give tickets out, you're like, well, I can't go. I got to work. Well, this is actually a weekend game, so these are extra special tickets. So don't go anywhere. We're going to, even if you can't win the tickets, you can play along in your car or however you're listening right now. But a terrible story right now. Another ICE agent has been shot by an illegal. Now, I famously made a prediction last week that I'm not very happy about that says unless we start dropping the hammer on all these ICE attacks, it's going to keep escalating until an ICE agent dies. Now, I don't think this proves my theory because I'm not even sure if the guy who shot him knew it was an ICE agent. It might be. But listen, I cut out the whole context because Kristi Noem did the press conference, and it wasn't too far before the James Show started. So this is sort of fresh information that you're probably hearing for the first time from me. But you know, she's the Secretary of Homeland Security, and she gave sort of a summary of it. I haven't even really got a chance to dive in it more than what she said right before the show.
Listen, our officer was off duty on Saturday evening when him and his friend were attacked. They were attacked by two individuals that were set on robbing them, and thankfully he had his service weapon with him and was able to defend himself and his friend and injured one of those individuals that was trying to do them harm. His quick action speaks to his tenacity and his excellence in training and skill, and because of that, one of the perpetrators was wounded in this interaction and was incarcerated when he came in to get medical treatment. One of the suspected attackers, the one that was injured, his name is Miguel Francisco Mora Nunez, a Dominican national that was entering into this country illegally back in 2023. He was then released back into this country by the Biden administration. Miguel Francisco Moro Nunez and has a rap sheet that is a mile long. He was arrested. He was charged with grand larceny and also assault. The state of Massachusetts has an active warrant out for him for armed robbery with a firearm. He also has many other charges against him, such as kidnapping and witness intimidation. There's absolutely zero reason that someone who is scum of the earth like this should be running loose on the streets of New York City. He was arrested 4 different times in New York City, and because of the mayor's policies and sanctuary city policies, was released back to do harm to people and to individuals living in this city. Make no mistake, this officer is in the hospital today fighting for his life because of the policies of the mayor of this city and the city council and the people that were in charge of keeping the public safe. They refused to do so, and now we have the situation on our hand where someone who has dedicated their lives to protecting the public is now fighting for his own.
You know, I have a feeling that if this was helping the narrative at any point, this would be a huge story because this doesn't happen in a vacuum. We had the Dallas ICE agent that went up to Oklahoma and he got shot by the illegal immigrant he was trying to take into custody. And that was just last week. 2 weeks ago, we had the attack in the Alvarado facility and the attack at the McAllen facility where 3 people were shot there. One was shot in the neck in Alvarado. And so we have an established pattern, and it's beyond, it's a coincidence or whatever. This is a pattern. And this is a pattern that not only does it not fit the narrative, not only does it go counter to the narrative, it makes people that are pushing the narrative look insane. Because you're being told by people like the Ana Navarros of the world and other people in the media that the ICE agents are conducting a reign of terror over the Latino community. Meanwhile, is anyone in the Latino community being shot by ICE agents? Or are they doing all the shooting? Are the ICE agents are the ones that are being shot at? Now, I know you can tell, technically speaking, in this scenario, that the ICE agent did shoot at somebody, but only after he had been shot in the face and he was shooting in self-defense. This is ridiculous because, you know, something else when I was browsing through the headlines, someone was making some hay on some news channel that's not here in North Texas, but they were like, someone had tied a noose to a scaffolding, and that's a racial hate crime. It's like, hang on a second. Why would someone tie a noose on a scaffolding? How would that be a racial hate crime? What are you talking about here? And so there's a construction site in Tennessee. Nissan Stadium's under construction. And it turns out that, sometimes in the construction business, if you're going to use a rope to pick up something and you want to tie a knot that's really stable, you tie a knot that's similar to a noose, but it actually has a practical purpose. And it's not even the same type of rope you would use. It's not like any human being has ever been lynched in such a fashion. And just because it kind of half resembled a noose to people who aren't familiar with knots or construction zones, this made news. It was written up by the Tennessean, got picked up by Yahoo News, got picked up. Go Google it. It's all over the place. So I have a big problem with this because the media seems to be really, really concerned about violence or hatred if it goes one way. And if the violence or hatred goes another way, not only is it not news, we just pretend like it doesn't even happen. We don't even acknowledge it, much less put it in the headline or in the body of the story. And it's ridiculous. So all I'm asking for here is, can we just have one rule that we all follow and we follow it religiously? Either violence between ICE and illegal immigrants is news or it's not news. Either things that are considered to be perceived to be racist are news or they're not news. Because if it's only one way, now you're exploiting the suffering of illegal immigrants and their fear. You're stoking fear in the illegal immigrant community for things that just aren't true. And conversely, you're reporting, if it were honest, would have the general public being more sympathetic toward ICE agents and what they're going through and the violence they are facing. Maybe there wouldn't be a big rush to question, why are they wearing masks? Can you believe they're wearing masks? They're just like Nazis. That's what Nazis would do. Wear masks. Stop it. The hyperbole is getting people killed. The hyperbole is getting people shot. The hyperbole is making the situation unsafe for both ICE agents and the illegal immigrants they're trying to take into custody. Can we all tap the brakes or at least be somewhat fair in our reporting? How many ICE agents have to get shot or shot at before the news will be sympathetic toward the ICE agent? I do see a wave of violence. I do see who's living under a reign of terror. It's the ICE agents. They're on. Look, here's a good way. Here's just off the top of my head. Here's some advice. If you want to encourage ICE agents to stop wearing masks, here's what you can do. Stop shooting at them. This should be one of the biggest stories on TV. I mean, it's going to be big on talk radio, but MSNBC's not mentioning it. Fox News is bringing it up every once in a while. But here we are, another one shot at. And there's all kinds of little side lessons to be learned here too. Thank goodness he's one of the rare people in New York City that's actually carrying a gun, or he'd be dead by now. So that's beautiful. What a great argument for gun control, or the absence of gun control, eliminating gun control this is. It's a good reminder. If you're allowed to carry a weapon, I highly recommend you carry it, especially if you're an ICE agent. But look, we're going to learn more about this story. I don't even know if the two illegal immigrants knew that they were shooting at an ICE officer, knew that they were trying to rob an ICE officer. I don't know that yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that they did know. But whether we did or didn't, how many is this going to take? How many times they have to be shot at before the news is sympathetic to their plight and stops calling them the Gestapo and Nazis and literally Hitler? It's terrible. It's not fair. You're talking about other human beings. Talk about you're the party of empathy. No, you're not. You have no empathy toward ICE agents. You have no empathy toward police officers who are just enforcing the very reasonable immigration laws as they're written. Coming up next, Hunter Biden did a long interview yesterday. You'll hear he's got some strong opinions on immigration too. And don't worry, I bleeped out all the F-bombs. You'll hear it next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Another ICE agent shot. This was by a pair of illegal immigrants in good old New York City.
New York City!
We don't know if they knew it was an ICE agent they were shooting or if it's just a cosmic injustice here. We have a guy who was released 5 times. He was picked up by border officials, and then 4 times he had been in custody for committing different crimes. And I think one was in Boston and a few in New York City. So this is a guy that had no business being in the country in the first place. And then once he was in the country, he had no business being let back out on the streets after the parade of crimes that this guy has committed. So we have this lackadaisical approach to enforcing our laws, whether it's immigration laws or laws against theft, property crime, or even violence here, because the guy was hitting for cycle. He's running out of laws to break. He's probably jaywalking while he did it. But this illegal immigrant should not have been on our streets for both the illegal immigration status that he was walking around with the entire time for the last couple of years, or the multiple times police had taken him in. You can't blame cops for this. They're doing their job. They catch the bad guy. They put him behind bars, and then some prosecutor, some squish judge lets him out. And we're paying the price for it. Americans are paying the price for these terrible policies. This is why, if you're only casually interested in politics, I invite you to jump in with both feet. When people are like, well, what can we do? It's like, well, you know what? I know it doesn't sound cool or fun, but a lot of these improvements are going to come from common people getting involved in political causes more so than you already are. You can't just donate to a cause. You can't just donate to a candidate. You can't just share some social media posts and expect real change. We need real people to start getting involved here. Because if you had a different judge that wasn't a squish when it came to violent criminals, especially illegal immigrants, then this guy wouldn't have got shot in the face. If you had a president and a presidential administration that actually enforced laws that they're written on the books and didn't just with the wave of his hand say, oh, we're not going to enforce these laws, this guy wouldn't have gotten shot in the face. If you had voters out there who pressed their city leaders to not be a sanctuary city, then when he did get picked up, even if he didn't go through the full judicial process and be adjudicated for his crimes, he could have been deported by now. But you have to fall all over yourself with like 8 different terrible angles from terrible policies, from terrible voters who support terrible ideologies, and it ends up with real people, good people getting shot in the face. This guy's an ICE agent. Hunter Biden did an interview over the weekend. It's long. I haven't heard the whole thing, but I heard a lot. And you'll be hearing more of this probably on tomorrow's show. But the part where he was talking about the subject I'm bringing to you right now, illegal immigration, don't worry, I bleeped it. But here he is trying to make the case that illegals aren't the bad guys. And who allowed this guy to do an interview? I mean, I don't know if anyone can stop him, but if you're on his team, wouldn't you tell him, bro, you are never, ever doing another public interview? Because I'm pretty sure he's probably on crack while he's doing this interview. You think he's 100% sober doing this? Listen to this. This was this weekend.
For someone, am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. You. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your garden? Who do you think is here by the sheer just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance? And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the criminals?
Yeah, the ones shooting ICE officers in the face, I think we would all agree they're criminals, right? What is this weird servant thing that they have going on? Who do you think does your garden? I tell you who does my garden. I do. Maybe I make the kids water the plants every once in a while. I don't have a list of servants. Who do you think cooks your food? Who do you think? Bro, all right. There are places in America where, strangely enough, and it's weird being there. If you're from Texas, a majority minority state, it's weird being a place that's only white people. Trust me, you're not used to it. It's weird. But I did live for 1 year in a place called Woodward, Oklahoma. I just worked at a tiny radio station. It was the first instance of the James Show ever. That was 20 years ago. But in the entire town of about 20,000 or so people, there was I think I saw 2 black people there the whole year that I was there. And it was almost all white. So you know who did mow your lawn in Woodward, Oklahoma? It's a big stretch here. White people. Yeah. Who did your gardening? Who washed the dishes? Who cooked your food? You know, it's possible for non-illegal immigrants to do these jobs. What does this come from? Like we would all starve without illegal immigrants? Really? Is that what you think? It's such a weird mindset. And I don't understand why it doesn't get called out as racist. And not that you value highly what Hunter Biden said, but he just said very foully what a lot of people really think. And it's ugly. It's sort of it's almost a benevolent form of racism for the illegal immigrants, but it's malevolent for the natives here. Because they're not just slandering white people, they're slandering black Americans too. They're slandering Latino Americans, Hispanic Americans, Chicanos is what my grandfather called himself. Well, look, even if it does have to be a brown person that does your dishwashing or gardening or cooking your food, couldn't it at least be a legal one? So it's not even a legit argument to begin with, even if he is telling the truth. But you'll hear more from him tomorrow. It's going to be great. Coming up next, we're going to play Dead or Alive. And today's game is for Rangers tickets. They're playing this Saturday. If you want to go see the Rangers, I'll give you 2 tickets if you can win the game. Call in right now, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Today's category is child actors. Dead or Alive, coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. You know, I was just playing the Hunter Biden clip in the last segment, and Greg sent me a Facebook message that says the rumor is Hunter Biden's going to try and run for president in 2028. And oh, my God, I hope that's true. Oh, my God. You know how good that would be for talk radio hosts all over the country? Please, please, please let him run for president. Please let him run for president. It'd be such a spectacle. Hell, I might even prefer he win. But now it's time to play Dead or Alive. Today's edition is child actors, and today's tickets, Rangers tickets for this Saturday. Thank you, Mr. Jovi. Welcome to Dead or Alive. This is the James Show game show where I'm going to list you 10 celebrities. You have to tell me if they're dead or alive. Today's category, child actors. We're going to start in Irving with Jennifer. You're on WBAP. You ready to play Dead or Alive, Jennifer?
I am.
Okay. Remember, these are all child actors, starting with the Coreys. Corey Feldman, dead or alive?
Hello?
Yeah, Corey Feldman, dead or alive?
Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman is alive.
Yes. The other Corey Haim, dead or alive?
Dead.
Malcolm Jamal Warner from The Cosby Show, dead or alive?
He just passed away today.
I know. What a sad story. I was such a big Theo fan. Macaulay Culkin, dead or alive?
Alive.
He is alive. Well, you're quick on this one. River Phoenix, dead or alive?
He's dead.
Linda Blair from The Exorcist, dead or alive?
She is alive.
And she looks a lot less scary these days.
Yeah.
Brittany Murphy from Clueless and 8 Mile, dead or alive?
Name again is...
Brittany Murphy. She was also in King of the Hill.
Oh, Brittany Murphy. Right? Brittany Murphy?
Brittany Murphy, yes.
Yeah, she's dead.
Gary Coleman from Different Strokes.
Dead.
What you talking about, Willis? Jodie Foster, who was a child actor in Taxi Driver.
She's alive.
She is alive. Man, she's just running the table here. And finally, Haley Joe Osment from Sixth Sense, dead or alive?
Oh, he's alive.
He is alive. Lord. No one's stopping Jennifer. Sorry to all the other nice people on hold. Lisa, Carol, Peter. Jennifer just ruined your life and took your tickets. Are you going to the Ranger game this Saturday?
Hope to.
Are you a big fan, or is this for your husband?
Well, he's the bigger fan, but yeah.
You're a fan by proxy?
Mm-hmm.
You're just a good wife, aren't you? Coming home with Ranger tickets for your husband. I'm going to put you on hold. And Garrett will get your information, send you the tickets. Well, that was an easy edition of Dead or Alive. I guess we can roll right into today's edition of What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time?
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, Governor Hot Wheels, and he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Queen of the liberal tea.
In today's edition, Jasmine Crockett, the congressional representative for the district that I'm sitting in right now in the studios at WBAP, she was addressing the specter of redistricting the maps here in Texas for congressional apportionment. And while I agree with her, there's something very suspicious about deciding, hey, we're going to redraw the maps here in the middle of the decade. Her reasoning is not the same as mine.
Texas is a majority-minority state, and they don't feel comfortable having to go and present their very much racist policies, the policies that racist. People like the Proud Boys are excited about, the people like the Oath Keepers, people like, we saw on January 6th, those guys. So that's what they're going to do. They are going to minimize people of color's voices, and they truly believe that by pushing their white supremacy agenda, they will be able to then secure more Republican seats. I've got news for them. I believe in the people of Texas, and I believe that this may backfire in a really unprecedented way. In fact, I will tell you confidently that there are absolutely Republicans that currently are serving that are concerned as well, and they should be concerned that this may backfire on them as they try to create these seats, because there will be new vulnerabilities. And I promise you, I am going to do everything that I can to make sure that Texans know what is at stake and understand that they are trying to basically put their voices on mute, and it is time to raise the volume on their voices. And so we will work and outwork this gerrymander to make sure that Texas actually shows up and shows out, and Donald Trump is left being the crybaby that he is.
All right. So the idea that there's gerrymandering with the congressional districts, so the political parties won't have as much of a fight, is something that happens on both sides of the aisle. And it happens on both sides of the aisle with the same map. This is one of the uniparty things that kind of drives me nuts, is the fact that even when you look at a map and it's clearly gerrymandered, I mean, it happens in almost every state. Our state's pretty bad. Louisiana is worse. You should go look at their congressional districts. It's an absolute clown show, because we don't have anything nearly as bad as, there's one congressional district in Louisiana that takes not even all of New Orleans. It just takes the really terrible Democrat parts of New Orleans and then follows a little skinny strip up the Mississippi River coastline to go capture the really terrible parts of Baton Rouge. And so these are the two most heavily Democrat areas in the entire state. But when they try and break that district into two districts and have it, kind of meld into the districts around it, not only do the Republicans fight it, but the Democrats fight it too. Because two things: Democrats love having a district that they don't have to spend any money to win. But Republicans love having districts that they don't have to spend any money to win either. And if you actually drew the maps to where they were purple districts instead of stark red and blue, both sides realize that they would actually have to spend money to win those districts. There would be a fight on their hand, and neither one of them want to do it. That's the dirty little secret, is both sides love gerrymandering. They can't gerrymander hard enough. So no, Jasmine, this isn't based on racism. This isn't based on white supremacy. We're not trying to push through a white supremacy agenda. But I do agree, it's quite suspect that they're trying to redraw it in the middle of the decade when the Constitution says they're supposed to do it after the census, and the census is supposed to happen every 10 years at the top of the decade. So, I mean, my sensibilities are kind of in the same direction, but no, the motivation is way off on that one. Coming up next, another woman has accused Donald Trump of sexual assault. And that means 27 times a Democrat activist has accused Trump of sexual assault, but no Republican women. 800-288-9227. You'll hear that story next on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, it's happened again. A woman has accused Donald Trump of sexual assault. This one was a former Sports Illustrated model who, look, maybe if you're trying to make the accusation, you shouldn't include the fact that you were Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend for a few months in 1990, but here it is.
I'm considered number 27. I'm Donald Trump's 27 sexual assault victim. When I was doing Sports Illustrated, that's when he assaulted me. Jeffrey Epstein walked me into his office to be sexually assaulted by him.
Jeffrey Epstein walked me into his office to be sexually assaulted by him. The whole story is she was dating Jeffrey Epstein, and I guess he was just an upstanding, good Christian boy until they came across Donald Trump. Is that believable? And then Jeffrey Epstein takes her in the office, and Trump grabs her top parts and bottom parts, and that's the whole of it. Yeah, like a handful. And look, that's still sexual assault, and that's terrible, and no woman should have to endure that without proper consent or whatever. But man, the timing on these is so crazy. 1990? 1990? That's 35 years ago. Which makes me feel old, but shut up. Maybe I am. 35 years, and you just wanted to come out now. Just over the weekend. Thought you'd throw that out there 35 years later. Not before he gets elected for president the first time. Not when he runs for re-election, loses. Not when he runs for election the third time. Not when he has all these other scandals. Not when he has court cases floating over his head. Now, I'm not saying just because a woman waits 35 years that she's not telling the truth, but it is a little suspicious because if this is true, if this really is number 27, then you got to think 27. And all of you guys are outspoken Democrat supporters. What are the odds of that? In a country that's 50-50, could you flip a coin and land on heads 27 times in a row? I bet you can't. Hell, I bet you can't do it 4 times in a row, much less 27 times. That's a lot. 27. Why now? But that's one of the things that makes the accusations against Bill Clinton so credible. Now, he has, from my count, I kept a list. I made a list 10 years ago doing this. He has 23 ladies that have accused him. And not all of them are Republicans. In fact, it's about a 50-50 shot. It's almost like you did flip a coin. In fact, the numbers kind of bear out and look like that it's even more valid. Because if it was 23 Republicans that were accusing Bill Clinton, I would be skeptical. You would be skeptical. The timing would be skeptical. But like for an example, Kathleen Willey. Not only is she not a political adversary of Bill Clinton, he was working in her White House. Her husband had committed suicide just days later. She was upset and he caught her crying and he cleared the room so it was just them two alone and he got a little handsy with her. And it was more handsy than this woman described to Trump. She immediately said something about it, lost her job. When he was out of office, she felt it was safe to write a book about it. She did. She wrote a book about it. She did media rounds. Do you believe this for a second? Because even if you don't, I still have people who on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and sometimes emails send me these stories. They're like, here's your God again. This guy you worship so much, terrible person. Nobody who supports this guy should dare call themselves a moral person. Oh, shut up. Shut up. It's absolutely disgusting because y'all have ruined the accusation process with your Kathleen Blasey Fords or Christine Blasey Ford. Remember that against Brett Kavanaugh? With your E. Jean Carroll stories. You know, these false accusation stories, we say that that's a bad thing because then future women won't be believed. This is what we're talking about. You remember how bad the Christine Blasey Ford accusations against Brett Kavanaugh were? Oh, he pushed me onto a bed and then he held me down and kissed me. And then he got off when his friend came in the room. That's the worst you got? Look, a forced kiss is bad, but you don't remember what year it happened? You don't remember what day it happened? You don't remember what month it happened? You don't remember where it happened, whose house you were in. A little bit of details would be nice. I imagine if it's something that traumatic in your life, even if you don't remember the exact date or time, you would at least remember the year. So I hate to be so dismissive of this. I have 2 daughters. I have a sister. I have a mom. I have a lot of female relatives. I have a lot of close female friends. And if anything happened to them, I think it would be awful if they told their story and weren't believed. But this one, it's really hard. You're really stretching people's credulity on that one. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show. Come back. Tomorrow we're going to have an awesome show. We're going to talk about the Texas legislative session. And I think DART's trying to bribe suburbs into giving their funding back. So that exclusive is through the Dallas Express. We'll be talking about that. But in the meantime, if you need more James Show action, catch the parts of the show you missed today. Find the James Show podcast, WBAP.com, WBAP app, or wherever you're listening to podcasts. Just search it up, James Parker, James Show. It'll pop up. Stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. This has been the James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.